Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today let's review Season 6 of Doctor Who. So the final 60s season, the final season of the Second Doctor, and the final season in black and white. I think some people would call it the weakest Troughton season. I disagree, but I can see why they would. Because, okay, to be fair, I think one of the reasons why I prefer Season 6 over Season 5 is because so much of Season 6 is complete. 5 of Troughton's 7 complete stories come from Season 6, even if not all of them are the best. So I can understand why people would argue with me and would call it the weakest. I think my main defense is that, well, more of it's complete. And I like being able to actually see Troughton's performance, because Troughton, so much of his performance is down to the physicality of what he's doing. I mean, he does a lot with his voice, too, and that really shines through in the animations, the way he's saying his lines. But I love watching his physical acting, his body language, his facial expressions. They're just such a big part of his Doctor for me. So I like having so many of his stories intact here. Now, they're not all great. Let's be honest. The Dominators. Let's start off and tackle these in, well, the best order I can remember them in. The Dominators isn't very good. It's one of the weakest classic Doctor Who stories and probably the weakest Troughton story. It isn't good. What is saving this story and making it watchable are two things primarily. Troughton and Frasier. Troughton's performance is great here. He's stealing the show. I love all of the little things he is doing with his dialogue and the way he's performing his dialogue. I recently rewatched The Dominators, and I did mention in that video in that review how much I was loving Troughton's performance, all the little lines. I told you to stay away from the quarks. Well, I do, but every time I turn around there's one, whatever it is he says, I don't remember. You know, every time I see one, I turn and run away, but they're everywhere. What am I supposed to do? Lying through his teeth. I love him. And then Fraser Hines is putting in a really good performance as Jamie. Now, I do feel like Zoe is getting stuff to do. Wendy's getting some stuff to do. She's just a bit underutilized as a character in this story. She's doing good with what she's got. There's just not a lot for her to do. And I do like Arthur Cox's character as well. I did enjoy him in this. And then even some of the story beats I did like when the one Dominator shows up in the pacifist city, the Deltons or whatever they're called. And he's like, "You are asking for our help?" And the Dominator's just like, "Asking?" I love that whole scene. Now he keeps telling the one guy to shut up or he'll kill him. The guy keeps going on, so he kills him. And I'm sitting there going, he warned you. He gave you warning. Also, the guy playing the Dominator there, I like him, the lead Dominator. He's also in Ambassadors of Death. And I really like his character in Ambassadors of Death, dude. This guy needed to be in Doctor Who more, because both of the roles I know him for in Doctor Who, he's great. He's great as this Dominator. I mean, the acting's a little stilted between the Dominators at the very beginning. But once they get moving, they're a lot better. They're a lot better. And I'm just something about this one in particular. I just like watching his performance. Same thing when he's in Ambassadors of Death. But yeah, the actual story's a bit rubbish. It's a hard one to get through. If it wasn't for Troughton and Frasier and a couple of the guest actors, I'd really struggle with this one. But they make the 5 episodes worth getting through. I'm really glad this wasn't 6 episodes. The Mind Robber. I like The Mind Robber because The Mind Robber once again delves into kind of this fantasy element, which Doctor Who is suited for really well, in my opinion, as we've seen with the current Season 1 from 2024. It does a lot of fantasy elements, and in a lot of that, I think it pulls off well, too. Not always, but a lot of it. And, of course, the Celestial Toymaker pulls it off pretty well. I liked the animation for Toymaker. The Mind Robber could be the best of these, though. I really enjoy it. The first episode, when you're in this kind of void place with the robots, is a great way to start off. And then how it leads into the actual main story where you're meeting all of these fantasy characters. And they're realized pretty good for a 60s Doctor Who budget. The Mind Robber takes this very minimalist approach with how it's setting up this fantasy landscape. And that minimalist approach really fits with Doctor Who's budget and fits with black and white. I don't want this one colorized. Like this one does not need to be colorized. It works in black and white so well. The only thing that feels weird when the kind of one of the main antagonists, they keep calling him the Master when it's not actually the Master because he hasn't been invented yet as a character. But so that's a little throwing off in retrospect when they're calling him the Master, and I'm like, wait, what? But other than that, it's a lot of fun. It's really Doctor Who being Doctor Who, and I love that. We have The Invasion, which is possibly the best Cyberman story ever made. A final 60s Cybermen story that pull out all the stops. Not only are the Cybermen great in it, and we get some wonderful, iconic shots of the Cybermen walking around the city, coming out of the sewer. Some of the most iconic shots in all of Doctor Who. We also get a fantastic human villain in Vaughn, who's probably one of the best human villains the show has ever had. And a really good human villain in Packard, too. Packard is kind of the bronze, and Vaughn's kind of the brains, who can also be the bronze. There's a lot of good imagery going on in The Invasion. Like when the one guy gets thrown, with the glasses, gets thrown down in the sewer and he's trying to escape and the Cybermen kill him. It's great. It's wonderful to get the... let's see, I believe we get the introduction of Unit here. This is pretty much a proto-Pertwee story. And it's great to have the Brigadier back, promoted to Brigadier now. Nicholas Courtney is fantastic in the role. I always love the Brigadier with the Second Doctor. They just get on so well. So I love when we get them together. And of course, we meet Corporal Benton for the first time, which is also very nice. Good to see his introduction in this. There's a lot of good things going on in The Invasion. It fills out its 8 episodes really well, in my opinion. And the animation for the 2 missing episodes is really good. I think it fits with the surviving episodes really, really well. Do I want the missing episodes found? Of course. But the animations serve very well. And then we move on to the Crotons, which I think is underrated. Excuse me. I like the Crotons. It's Bob Holmes, and you guys know I love Bob Holmes. I think it's a good 4-parter. The Crotons is a 4-parter that knows it only needs to be a 4-parter. At 6 parts, this would have been problematic, but at 4 parts, it works really well. The actual story makes sense of the Crotons keeping the population dumbed down so they don't realize how bad they're getting screwed over. Kind of like now. And I find that believable, what's happening in this story. And the people not understanding how the people they're sending off, the most intelligent of them, who still aren't testing well enough, just get killed immediately. The Crotons themselves are a pretty interesting design from the waist up. From the waist up, they're a great design. I love the spinning heads. They look great. From the waist down, I think that's where Crotons gets its reputation. Watching them walk around with the skirts, it's pretty bad. Even by classic Who standards, it's pretty bad. But from the waist up, they look good. I love the scene when the Crotons think they destroyed the TARDIS just for it to materialize somewhere else. Like, the TARDIS is like... And Troughton's, oh, why did you materialize over there, you stupid machine? You can tell the pilot's not at the helm, can't you? I love that. I love that. It has a lot of fun stuff going on in it that I like. I find the Crotons just underrated. And then we move into the Seeds of Death, which I don't think is an overly great story. It's a good story without being a great story, but it's miles better than the Ice Warriors. It is definitely the better of the 2 60s Ice Warrior stories, even if the 2 60s Ice Warrior stories are my least favorite Ice Warrior stories. I think it fills out its 6 parts pretty well. I like the guest cast. You can empathize with the guest cast. I like the one guy who manages to kill a couple of the Ice Warriors by setting up the trap, although him getting claustrophobia just out of nowhere is a little weird, since he was running around the pipes without getting it earlier. That's a little weird. And then you have the one guy who's really a coward. He's a big scaredy cat who's helping the Ice Warriors a lot. But like you can kind of understand that some people just don't have what it takes. They don't have the mettle. They're just inherently, they have that fear that just rules them that they can't get over. So it's like, this is a relatable character, even if you're frustrated by him. But at the end, he does the right thing too. He gets killed for it, but he does the right thing to do what he can. And what he does help them save the Earth. So it's not like he died in vain. And the fact he was able to overcome that fear and man up, so to speak, it's pretty neat. Plus, I like the actor playing him. And the guy who builds the rockets, I like him. I think our main cast is getting stuff to do. I think it's got some good cliffhangers as well. It's a good story without just blowing me away. And then we move into the Space Pirates. This one is really the problematic one in this season due to missing episodes, because only episode 2 exists. And while episode 2 is watchable, it's not very good. Just not a lot happens in it. I think the Space Pirates is a very visual story, and the only episode of it we have from it is the one where there's just not enough going on with our TARDIS team trapped in that room basically the whole time. And I don't think an audio would carry it. Now, the novelization is a good read. I have read the Target novel. I've watched the reconstructions too. The reconstructions are hard to get through. The novel is much superior. I enjoyed the novel and found it to be a very good read. The actual reconstruction, especially due to the lack of telesnaps, so they're using a lot of the same pictures they've made over and over and over and over again. It's tedious. It is just, it gets progressively harder to get through the longer you're watching it. Because like you get through the first episode, then you have the actual second episode. From that point on, those last 4 episodes get more and more frustrating. By the time I was done with it, I was so glad that I was done with it. Especially since this very much didn't need to be a 6-parter. Matter of fact, it was originally supposed to be a 4-parter. It got stretched to 6 parts. I don't think Bob Holmes was happy. But that's what happens when you don't have Bob Holmes in charge where he can decide these things. Bob Holmes is always amazing. But when you have him as the script editor too, and he can make the decisions on that, oh, he's God tier. God tier. Although a lot of his stories are God tier even when he's not there, like Caves of Androzani and Time Warrior and stuff like that. Spearhead from Space. But boy, you put him in charge as a script editor and give him the power to have the yay or nay say. But I like the Space Pirates as a story. I hope it gets animated. I think if it ever gets animated, it will be reevaluated and possibly remembered a little more fondly by fans. And then, of course, we move into the War Games, which you think is going to be a hysterical. It does a great job of making you think it's going to be an historical at first. A historical? While slowly you're starting to realize, wait, no, it's not, something going on. To where you actually realize it's more of a sci-fi story. Instead of being in the past historical, it's a futuristic sci-fi story. It's interesting how it pivots. The War Games, if you go into it not knowing what's going on, really does peel away like layers of an onion, like a lot of really good Doctor Who stories do. I actually find it well paced at 10 parts. I know some people might think that it's 9 parts of more of the same, with the 10 part being the epic. I actually find it paced very well. I like the guest cast a lot. I like the story a lot. I enjoy everything that's going on. I love some of the cliffhangers, especially the episode 9 cliffhanger with them slowing down in time. That's one of my favorite shots in Doctor Who is when they're running slowly towards the TARDIS. That's such a neat effect. It's such an easy effect for the team to do, but it's such a neat effect, and I love it. It's so effective, and it makes you remember when the Time Lords were so powerful, when they had like the power of gods. That's the Time Lords I love. And then of course you have the essential episode 10 that every Doctor Who fan needs to see, of course, with the Doctor on Gallifrey, even though it's not called that yet. And of course him standing trial and at the end being exiled. That's such a good episode. It's such a neat way to end a Doctor's era and to end a season and to end the black and white era of the show. It's a really good episode. So it's very much a mixed bag this season, to be fair. It very much is. I feel like our leads are putting in good performances. This is my favorite Second Doctor TARDIS team, having the Second Doctor Jamie and Zoe. I really enjoy them together. The performances are very, very good across the board. I like a lot of the guest cast in this as well. Most of them don't really feel like they're phoning it in. They look like they're earning their paychecks, which I like. And I like the the variety of stories is really neat, because where you have like the Dominators, which is on an alien planet, which is with Dalek stand-ins basically. And then you have the fantasy trippy nature of the Mind Robber, and then you move into the Invasion, where you have a modern day, retroactively pre-Pertwee story, again, contemporary times. Then you move into the Crotons, which is kind of like the Dominators with an alien menace on another planet. And then we have the Seeds of Death, which is in the future, at least to some degree, and you're bringing back the Ice Warriors. So you have your nice futuristic story. The Space Pirates, another futuristic space, almost Star Trek-like story. And then you have what you think is a historical that turns out to be another future space sci-fi story. I think it does a lot of that really well. I like Season 6. It's not as good as Season 4, but I prefer it over Season 5. Though if more of Season 5 was intact, Season 5 could take the lead. Season 5 has some good stuff. But I like that Season 6 has more variety, if that makes sense. So I'll go through real quick, and I will rank the stories from worst to best without going into too much detail. At the bottom of the list, I have the Dominators. Again, it's really just a few of the performances that make this watchable for me. I really have a hard time with the Dominators. Again, I just rewatched it, and it's definitely best watched over like a 2 or 3 day period. Next on the list is the Seeds of Death, which again is a nice watch, a huge improvement over the Ice Warriors. Definitely a better outing for them. And I think it fills out its 6 parts well enough. Maybe it could have been episode short, but it fills out its parts well enough. Next on the list, and this is because of the novelization, is the Space Pirates. If I was going simply off the recon, this would be square at the bottom, even below the Dominators. That recon is just soul-crushing to get through. But the novelization was so good, I had fun with it, and I actually feel like it earns being above the previous 2 due to how well the novelization is written and how well I was able to picture what was going on in my mind. Next on the list is the Crotons, which you guys know I find underrated. I find it a very enjoyable 4-parter that, again, knows it only needs to be a 4-parter. Next on the list at number 3, and these top 3 are very hard to do, I put The Mind Robber. Again, I love the fantasy nature of it. I wish Doctor Who would do that more. I actually like the fact that they kind of went more with the supernatural fantasy take in the newest season of Doctor Who. The new season 1 actually has some good stuff it does with that. So it's nice to have a story like The Mind Robber. The top 2 are almost a tie. I had so much problems ordering them. They're both masterpieces of Doctor Who. They're both essential Doctor Who for Doctor Who fans, and everyone should watch them. It's really hard to place them. For number 2, I put The Invasion, which is probably the best Cybermen story ever made, with one of the best human villains ever made, with another really good human villain, with some great location work, some great set design, a great guest cast, and some good performances from our main cast as well. Just a phenomenal, well-paced 8-parter. And then just barely squeaking past it at number 1, I have The War Games, which fills out its 10 parts well. It really is an epic story. It has a very epic feel to it, and it's so much fun to watch. So that's my thoughts on Season 6. I want to know what you think of Season 6. Comment down below, and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, definitely interested in getting more of these standard edition sets to sit alongside my limited edition sets. I really like them a lot. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist and my Amazon UK wishlist as well. Both of those links are also down there. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference, and it's very much appreciated. Also, my YouTube members, I appreciate them as well. A link to my Patreon if you would like to support me that way is also down in the description. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.